I just wrapped up my quarterly presentation, showcasing a sleek, data-driven analysis of how we surpassed the $50 million revenue mark when the new CEO, Damon Reeves, rose from his seat, adjusted his cufflinks, and cleared his throat. "Before we conclude," he said, wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "I have one last announcement regarding our leadership restructuring." I froze, my hand still hovering over the trackpad displaying the final slide. A festive graphic proclaiming the Q2 revenue surge, a record-breaking quarter highlighted behind me. Damon made his way slowly to the front of the room, while our entire executive team sat in silence. Some looked confused, and a few, those who had been whispering in corners lately, avoided my gaze. "As of today," Damon continued, "Olivia will be stepping down as Chief Operating Officer. Her contributions have been significant, and we are sincerely grateful." A pause. "However, as we shift into a new phase of aggressive scalability, we need to reduce bottlenecks in operations and enhance our agility in decision-making. Olivia's strength lies in her strategic discipline, but we require speed and efficiency." An odd silence fell over the room. Not shocked silence, but one of shame. "I believe your exact words last week were that we should hire more judiciously and invest in development before scaling too quickly," Damon added nonchalantly. "That kind of caution has its place, but not now. Thank you for your service." He turned to the team as if that explained everything. I stared at him, the man who had joined the company less than 3 months prior, and smiled. "I appreciate the clarity," I replied simply. No dramatics, no tears, no protests, just silence. Then I stepped aside as Damon took control of the projector and began his slide titled Phase 2, Structural Optimization. I walked back to my office as if I were just taking a lunch break. They had no idea. They were completely unaware of what I had already accomplished. 2 months earlier, when Damon had been appointed by the board, I sensed a shift. His background stemmed from fast-paced VC firms where decisions were dictated by spreadsheets and egos instead of people. From day one, he viewed me not as a partner, but as an obstacle to overcome. I had established the company's original product line 6 years ago, built the team, and drafted the operations manual. When our founding CEO had stepped down due to health issues, I was the one who kept the company afloat. I didn't ask for accolades. I asked for loyalty. Instead, I noticed changes. Meetings I wasn't invited to, strategies reversed without discussion, and a growing sense that Damon was constructing a narrative that excluded me. One afternoon, I overheard his assistant on speakerphone arranging a lunch with our largest vendor, my vendor, with whom I had negotiated contracts for years. The idea, he told the vendor's representative, was to phase Olivia out quietly to ensure a smoother transition. They aimed to erase me, but I had already begun taking precautions. I had seen the signs and understood something they didn't. Our biggest vendor, Chronocore Systems, was facing financial difficulties. I had been quietly reviewing their quarterly filings and knew they were seeking a buyout. The opportunity was golden. So I reached out to an old grad school friend, now a private equity partner in Boston, and we made an offer through a holding company I had discreetly created the previous year. It was a clean, silent, legal acquisition. By the time Damon called, their CEO, to push me out of vendor negotiations, he was met with a polite but firm response that any communication would now go through the new leadership of the holding company. He never connected the dots. So, when he announced my termination in front of the team, smiling as if he had just eliminated the last obstacle to his precious Phase 2, I didn't flinch because while Damon was sharpening his axe, I was purchasing the ground he stood on. Back at my office, I packed my belongings slowly. A family photo, the brass fountain pen my team gifted me last Christmas, and a leather-bound copy of The Lean Startup, still filled with my margin notes. I placed everything neatly in a box and turned to face the glass wall through which I could see Damon laughing with the CFO. I smiled again, softly this time. Tomorrow, the emails would start, the contracts would change, and in 3 days, panic would replace that smug confidence. Because the heartbeat of the company's supply chain, the vendor they couldn't replace, was now owned by me, and I was done being quiet. Friday morning, I received a polite but chilly email from HR. Subject: Transition Plan. Olivia, please complete the enclosed checklist by 5 p.m. today. We'll arrange for your severance and benefits transfer accordingly. Additionally, Damon. Requested if you'd be willing to draft a knowledge transfer document for your replacement. Best, Camille. People operations. I chuckled. The man fires me in front of my team and then asks for a favor as if we're exchanging birthday cards. Still, I replied with a brief message. Camille, I'll ensure all deliverables are documented. Regards, Olivia. It wasn't just professionalism, it was strategy. Every file I handed over would be clean, precise, and just incomplete enough to make them reliant on a partner they no longer controlled. And that partner, Chronocore Systems, still hadn't pieced it all together. At 10:17 a.m., I received a call from Michelle, my attorney. They've started sniffing, she said. A junior procurement manager at your old company contacted Chronocore, asking why they haven't approved a new delivery schedule. We responded formally, citing the recent acquisition and stating the new leadership team would handle future discussions directly. They'll escalate it by Monday, I predicted, especially when they realize how central Chronocore is to the Phase 2 rollout. They have a dependency they didn't even think to vet, Michelle said, almost amused. Congratulations, you own their supply chain. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the stack of framed awards I hadn't packed yet. Most were for operational excellence, cost savings, strategic procurement, all earned during my tenure. They used to be proud of me until I became inconvenient. That evening, I had dinner with Clara, one of the few people at the company I still trusted. She slid into the booth at our usual wine bar, her eyes wide. Everyone's talking about it. Damon was cocky all afternoon, but by 3 p.m., his mood shifted. Something spooked him. I stirred my drink. Was it about Chronocore? She nodded. They were supposed to finalize next quarter's contract this week, but the call got bounced. Legal mentioned something about a change in ownership structure, and now Damon wants answers. I raised an eyebrow. So, he's finally paying attention? Clara leaned in. He doesn't know, does he? Not yet. What are you going to do? I smiled slowly and deliberately. Nothing. I already did it. On Saturday, I received a meeting request. Not from Damon, but from their procurement lead, Trevor. Hi, Olivia. I know things ended awkwardly, but I was hoping to speak briefly about the Chronocore contract. There seems to be some confusion internally, and you're the only one who handled those negotiations. Would you be open to a quick call? I didn't respond. Not out of spite, but because it wasn't my job anymore. Instead, Michelle sent a formal letter on behalf of the holding company, Verity Partners LLC, notifying Techline, the parent company, that all further negotiations regarding Chronocore services would go through Verity's new client relations lead, me. Sunday evening, just after 9 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Unknown caller, Damon Reeves. One missed call, one voicemail, one new message. I didn't listen to it. Michelle had advised me against it. Let your silence be the loudest thing in the room, she'd said, and she was right. Monday morning hit Techline HQ like a thunderclap. I woke early, brewed my coffee, and accessed the internal dashboards I still had temporary access to through the vendor portal. Read, unconfirmed fourth quarter supplier contracts pending. Approval. That pending status would freeze 3 major product lines if left unresolved. At 8:02 a.m., Clara texted. Damon stormed into the 8 a.m. all-hands meeting. Nobody knew what was happening. He looks like he hasn't slept. By 10:30 a.m., LinkedIn was buzzing. A press release had gone out. Chronocore Systems announces new ownership under Verity Partners LLC. The acquisition marks a new chapter in operational leadership and client engagement. Our mission remains unchanged, to provide best-in-class enterprise solutions to our valued clients. It didn't mention my name, but everyone who knew me knew. At 11:12 a.m., I received a one-line email from Damon. We need to talk urgently. I forwarded it to Michelle. She called 10 minutes later, laughing. He's panicking. He finally realized who bought the kingdom he thought he ruled. And I haven't even begun to play my next card. Chronocore didn't just supply software components, they managed the data architecture for Techline's newest project, an AI-powered operations hub, on which Damon had staked his entire CEO reputation. Without Chrono's custom data libraries, that project would falter before launch. In the hallway outside my apartment, I heard footsteps echoing past my door. I glanced at my boxed office gear still sitting by the entryway. I hadn't decided whether to unpack it or donate it. It didn't matter anymore because, on paper, I no longer worked at Techline, but in practice, they worked for me. By Tuesday morning, the storm had officially hit Techline. I didn't need internal access to see it. All I had to do was watch the tremors ripple across LinkedIn. A project manager had quietly updated her status to open to work. 2 engineers from the AI division reposted the Chronocore acquisition announcement with vague captions like "Big industry moves ahead" and "One door closes, another opens." The real fallout began with a calendar invite sent from Damon's assistant. Subject line: "Emergency leadership meeting, 9 a.m. mandatory attendance." Clara texted me at 8:44 a.m. He's sweating, literally. We all saw him walk in. He looks like someone just handed him a resignation letter written in blood. I smiled into my coffee cup. This wasn't personal vengeance. I wasn't interested in watching Damon fall apart for the sake of it, but I was keen on seeing the board realize the kind of decision they made when they handed the keys to a man who couldn't envision 3 moves ahead. That morning, Michelle and I finalized our formal licensing proposal for Techline. It wasn't cruel. It was just expensive. Chronocore had previously offered services under a volume discount model negotiated directly by me to optimize for scale and growth. That model was now off the table. What Techline would now receive was a pay-as-you-go structure built monthly with a premium for data hosting, integration support, and critically, access to the proprietary AI learning modules that had become the backbone of their next-gen ops hub. Michelle read the terms aloud again just to relish them. Standard enterprise rates, plus a 22% premium for custom dependencies, plus exclusivity protections. Oh, and public acknowledgement of Chrono's new ownership, of course. "Let's send it before lunch," I said. "It'll give them just enough time to lose their appetites." That afternoon, my phone buzzed. From Clara. "Olivia, the engineers figured it out. You bought Chronocore? It's flying through Slack. Damon is livid. He locked the entire DevOps team in a private meeting." A few minutes later, she added, "P.S. 2 directors just asked me if you're hiring." I typed a reply, but stopped short of sending it. Better to let the uncertainty do the work for me. Meanwhile, Michelle received a formal response from Techline's legal department, acknowledging our offer, but not accepting it. They wanted to discuss potential alternative licensing terms. Translation: they couldn't afford it and hoped I'd blink. I didn't. Instead, Michelle sent a short, courteous note. "As outlined in our offer, these terms are non-negotiable unless accompanied by a substantial equity stake or public acquisition offer. We understand if Techline prefers to seek other vendors." There were no other vendors. Chronocore wasn't just their provider, it was their infrastructure. It wasn't like switching office chairs. It would take at least 18 months to rebuild what we had developed, and they didn't have that kind of time. That evening, as I walked through my new office at Verity's downtown location, Chrono's updated HQ, I noticed the construction, crew finishing the glass walls on our new strategy lab. I watched the team setting up whiteboards and tech screens, and for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Belonging. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "Voicemail received." I hit play. "Olivia, this is Damon. I think we need to start over. I don't know what your endgame is here, but you're putting a lot of people at risk. People who supported you for years. Just think about that. You are better than this." The arrogance wrapped in false concern made me shake my head. I had put people at risk? This man had fired me in front of an entire executive team. He had pushed through reckless expansion plans, slashed onboarding and QA budgets, and eliminated remote flexibility to boost productivity, then blamed me when senior developers began leaving. And now he was suddenly the victim? No, Damon wasn't. Worried about the staff. He was worried about the board. Clara confirmed it the next morning. He tried to spin the vendor situation as unexpected market volatility. The board wasn't having it. They asked for a full audit of supplier dependencies. He deflected, and then they brought in audit counsel. This is unraveling fast. I think he knows he's done. At noon, my inbox pinged. Subject: immediate assistance. Requested from Techline Board Chair Richard Alvarez. Dr. Monroe, on behalf of the Board of Directors at Techline, I'd like to request a confidential meeting at your earliest availability. We are reviewing the current leadership's handling of strategic partnerships and understand you may have insights relevant to the board's assessment. Please let us know a convenient time to speak. Now, that was intriguing. I replied, Mr. Alvarez, I would be happy to make time later this week. Thursday or Friday morning would work well. Please let me know what suits your schedule. Respectfully, Olivia Monroe, Managing Partner, Verity Partners. As I hit send, I leaned back in my chair and glanced at the framed quote on my shelf. Mobsia Zamber, gift from one of my engineers back at Techline. Be the kind of leader your future self won't have to apologize for. I had no apologies to make because while Damon had played politics, I had built power, and the game wasn't over. Thursday morning arrived bright and cold, with a sharpness in the air that felt just right. I dressed carefully, a navy pantsuit, with clean lines, silver cufflinks, and the sapphire ring my grandmother had left me. It was the kind of outfit that signaled, I don't work for you, but you'll wish I did. At exactly 9 a.m., I stepped into a private boardroom on the 32nd floor of the Halberton Tower, where the Techline board had set aside space for what they described as a confidential off-site review. The receptionist greeted me warmly. Dr. Monroe, they're expecting you. Inside, Richard Alvarez, the chairman of the board, stood to greet me. Thank you for coming, Olivia. We appreciate you making the time. Of course, I said, shaking his hand. The room was quiet, paneled in dark walnut, with a carafe of coffee sitting untouched on the credenza. 6 board members sat at the table, their expressions ranging from neutral to uncomfortable. They weren't sure how I would show up. Angry, bitter, smug. Instead, I brought calm. I understand you've asked for some insight into the Chronocore situation, I began. Richard nodded. It's escalated beyond what we anticipated. I figured it might. I placed a sleek leather folder on the table. In here, you'll find a timeline of events, emails, correspondence, financial filings, all of which confirm that Chronocore was fully acquired by Verity, partners as of 3 weeks ago. We are now the exclusive provider of your AI systems architecture and own the data modules currently powering over 60% of your next-gen rollout. Silence. You'll find that at the time of acquisition, I was no longer employed by Techline, which means there is no conflict of interest, only a failure to recognize operational risk on your current leadership's part. A board member in a gray suit leaned forward. Why didn't Damon flag this? Perhaps, I said evenly, because he didn't see it coming. That landed. I watched them shift in their seats. Richard cleared his throat. He told us the vendor disruption was due to internal politics, that Chronocore had overextended. I shook my head. Chronocore is more stable now than it's been in 5 years. What's unstable is Damon's assumption that cutting out institutional knowledge was the best path forward. I paused, then added softly, sometimes the bottleneck isn't the one who's slow. It's the one who doesn't know what they're holding back. Later that day, back at Verity's office, I met with my new executive team. We were reviewing the final terms of the updated licensing agreement Techline was now being urged to sign. It's generous, said Michelle. We even included a 6-month grace period at their old pricing tier to ease the blow. They won't see it that way, I replied. But it's fair. We're not here to punish. We're here to protect our product and set a precedent. Across the table, our CTO, Eli, pulled up a live dashboard displaying incoming client inquiries. Since the press release, he said, we've had 12 enterprise-level companies reach out, some of them Techline competitors, asking about migrating to our platform. I looked at the list. 2 names jumped out immediately. I used to chase those clients for years at Techline, only to be told they were out of reach. Now they were knocking on my door, not because of a flashy deck or clever marketing, but because they finally recognized what I had always claimed. The value wasn't in the brand, it was in the work. That afternoon, I received a call from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Ela Grant. She was one of the only other senior women in Techline's leadership during my early years. Smart, ambitious, empathetic, but driven. We had worked side by side until she was edged out 2 years before me during another realignment. Olivia, she said, I've been watching this whole thing unfold. You have no idea what it's done for the women still in tech, especially those over 40. I was quiet for a moment, unsure how to respond. You didn't just win, Ela continued. You proved that dignity and patience can coexist with strategy, that you can outthink someone without stooping to their level. It's rare, and it's powerful. Her words lingered with me long after we ended the call, because this was the impact I hadn't anticipated. It wasn't just about a comeback, it was about sending a message. You can fight back without becoming the villain. By Wednesday, Techline issued a formal company-wide announcement. Techline has reached a strategic agreement with Verity Partners for continued access to the Chronocore platform. We are committed to maintaining operational excellence as we evolve under new leadership. Buried at the bottom was a subtle line acknowledging me by name. No adjectives, no embellishments, just facts. It was sufficient. Meanwhile, our marketing team at Verity was finalizing a keynote presentation I was invited to deliver at the Global Technology Leadership Forum next month. The title: When the System Says You're Replaceable and You Prove It Wrong. That evening, I returned home to find a handwritten note in my mailbox. There was no return address. Inside was a simple card with just one line: "You've become the story I tell my daughter when she thinks she's not strong enough." No name, no signature, just that. I held the card to my chest and let myself feel it. Not pride, not vengeance, just clarity. This wasn't about what they had taken from me. It was about what I had reclaimed. My name, my work, my worth. And I wasn't done yet. 1 year after I carried my belongings out of Techline's glass tower in a plain cardboard box, I walked into Verity's headquarters as the morning light spilled across the polished floor. It felt like a quiet milestone. No fanfare, no announcements, just the gentle click of my heels and the steady hum of a company I had rebuilt from the ground up. As I made my way to my office, Eli waved me down from the strategy room. "You're going to want to see this," he said, gesturing for me to come over with a grin. I stepped inside to find our analytics dashboard on the wall, cycling through live data from our clients. The numbers were impossible to ignore. Client retention at 98%, new enterprise onboardings at 14 in the last quarter, and revenue growth up 31% year over year. Then Eli pulled up the most satisfying figure: Techline's projected market share loss, 27% net migration to Verity infrastructure, including 9 of their top 20 former accounts. "They tried to downplay it at first," Eli said, "but investors are asking questions, and now finally they're answering." I blinked. Answering how? He turned the screen to show me the official statement just posted on Techline's investor relations site. "We acknowledge that strategic missteps, including the mishandling of key partnerships, contributed to the challenges we faced last year. We also recognize the foundational work of former executives, including Olivia Monroe, in building the operational systems that continue to shape the market." They said it, not just behind closed doors, not whispered as an apology, but publicly. My name in print, attached to my work. I leaned against the table, quiet for a moment. Eli watched me, then added, "It's not everything, but it's something. It's enough." I didn't need credit. I needed truth, I replied. Later that day, I reviewed the latest reports from our legal team. 3 more licensing agreements were finalized, one of which had been Techline's oldest partner, now fully transitioned to our system. Michelle sent me a message shortly after. "You know they're going to try to buy time with new branding, new leadership, and PR campaigns, but the core problem still stands. They forgot the people who built their foundation. And you reminded them without ever raising your voice." I didn't reply immediately. I just sat there, rereading her message, allowing it to settle. Because that was it, wasn't it? All the strategy, all the quiet moves, all the times I stayed calm when they expected me to break. It wasn't about ego. It was about proving that grace and power aren't mutually exclusive. That evening, as I walked through Verity's quiet halls, I noticed something new near the entryway. A framed plaque, one I hadn't approved but immediately recognized. It read, "The real legacy of innovation is not the product, it's the people who make it possible." Underneath it, in smaller text, was my name. I stood there for a long time, staring at the reflection of the hallway lights in the glass. Then, my phone buzzed in my coat pocket. It was a message from Clara. "Just wanted you to know I officially start Monday. Thank you for keeping the door open. It feels like I'm coming home." I smiled. Clara had been one of the last to leave Techline, loyal to a fault, but now she was finally ready to grow beyond what that place had allowed her to become. "Welcome back," I replied. "There's so much more we're going to build." At home. That night, I pulled a small box from the back of my closet. It still held some items from that final day at Techline. My mug, my team's farewell note, the pen they gave me when we crossed $50 million in revenue. I looked at each item, not with sadness, but with clarity. Those years hadn't been wasted. They had shaped me, tempered me. They had made this moment possible. A year ago, they had told me I was a bottleneck. What they never understood was that I wasn't holding the company back. I was holding it together. And now I was building something even stronger on my own. Terms with the right people, and with my name exactly where it belonged. Not hidden in the footnotes, not tucked into someone else's speech, but written clearly, boldly, and permanently at the top.